The night Lagos wept. Adewale stood by the roadside, clutching her phone like it was her last friend. Rain fell in angry sheets, beating against the tin roofs, flooding the streets, swallowing the neon lights of Victoria Island, one reflection at a time. Her heart had just been broken, not by a stranger, but by the man her family had praised, the man they said was perfect for her. Perfect, until she caught him with another. And now she was drenched not only in rain but in betrayal. She ordered an Uber. Not because she wanted to go anywhere, but because she needed to leave everywhere. She needed to run away, from the memories, from the faces, from the whispers of disappointment that waited at home. Headlights cut through the rain. A simple black Toyota pulled up in front of her. The driver leaned over and rolled down the window. His face was calm, his eyes steady. No pity. No judgment. Just quiet. Adewale slid into the back seat, water dripping from her hair, her makeup ruined. The car smelled faintly of vanilla air freshener, and for the first time all evening, she felt safe enough to breathe. He didn't speak at first. He just drove, weaving carefully through the chaos of Lagos traffic. Kiki horns blaring, impatient Danfo drivers splashing through puddles. But then, in a low voice he said softly, "Long night." The words were simple. Ordinary. Yet, something in the way he asked, made her chest tighten. Adewale opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. What could she say? That she had given her heart to a man who traded it for another? That the people who raised her would only see this as proof she was a failure? So she said nothing. She only leaned her head against the cold window, watching raindrops race each other down the glass. Minutes passed. He didn't push. Didn't ask again. He just drove. And for reasons she couldn't explain, the silence between them felt louder than the storm outside. By the time the car slowed in front of her gate, her phone buzzed with her mother's messages, long, sharp words of disappointment. But instead of rushing out, she stayed seated. Her eyes met his in the rearview mirror. And for a fleeting moment, it felt like the city disappeared. Like maybe, just maybe, the stranger behind the wheel wasn't just a driver. Maybe, he was the first person in a long time who could see the weight she carried, without her saying a word. Adewale didn't know it yet, but this ride was not an ending. It was the beginning. "We're here," he said softly. She didn't move. For a reason she couldn't explain, she didn't want the ride to end yet. Maybe it was the calm inside the car, compared to the noise in her father's house. Maybe it was the way he hadn't forced any unnecessary conversation on her. He noticed her hesitation. "You don't want to go in yet?" he asked gently. She blinked. "Not really." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Traffic stress?" he teased. "Family stress," she said before she could stop herself. Her own words surprised her. Normally she kept those things bottled up. But something about his tone, not pushy, not pitying, felt safe. Adewale leaned back in his seat, not turning to look at her, just speaking casually as if they were old friends. "Family stress is heavier than Lagos traffic," he said softly. "At least traffic moves eventually." That made her laugh, a short, unexpected sound that even startled her. For the first time, their eyes met again in the rearview mirror. Adewale saw warmth there. Not judgment. Just understanding. Adewale cleared his throat. "If you don't mind me asking, rich family stress?" Adewale raised a brow. "How did you know?" He shrugged lightly. "The gate. The driver that opened it. And the way you said family stress, like people who think they know what's best for you." Her smile faded a little. "You're not wrong." Silence lingered again, but this time, it wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful. Adewale surprised herself once more by speaking. "My dad, he thinks love is something you can arrange on paper. Money first, compatibility later." "And you don't agree?" Adewale asked. Adewale shook her head slowly. "I don't know. Maybe I just want someone who listens." There it was, the truth she never dared to voice. And now she had told it to a man whose name she still didn't even know. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air inside the car felt different now, softer, warmer. Adewale finally asked, "What's your name?" Adewale hesitated, then answered quietly, "Linda." She lied. And when she asked his, he chuckled. "Names are tricky. Sometimes people hear your name and start treating you different. So let's just say, I'm a driver who listens." Adewale tilted her head, studying him. There was something in his voice that didn't quite match the steering wheel he held. Something deeper, but she couldn't place it. They sat there talking far longer than they should have. About school days, about favorite foods, about random things like how Lagos never sleeps. With each word, the walls around her heart lowered, just a little. By the time Adewale finally stepped out, the compound was already quiet, the night heavy around them. She looked back once, and Adewale was still there, waiting until she disappeared inside. For the first time in a long while, Adewale went to bed with a smile she didn't try to hide. She replayed their talk in her mind, his words about family stress, the way he didn't push when she fell silent. She had met plenty of men who liked to talk over her, boast about themselves, or pretend they understood. He hadn't done any of that. He just listened, but she didn't know who he was. He was Adewale Adewale, the son of a billionaire. Adewale had grown up with everything money could buy, but nothing that money could not. From the outside, his life was perfect. The cars, the servants, the respect that followed his father's name. But inside he carried a quiet restlessness. Everywhere he went, people saw Chief Adegbete's son, never just Adewale. Women smiled at him not because of who he was, but because of what he represented. Friends clung to him as long as the drinks were on his tab. Even in business circles he was treated less as a man, and more as a door to his father's empire. So one evening he made a choice. He parked his expensive cars, left behind the security guards, and registered for something no one in his world would expect: Uber. Behind the wheel of a modest car, dressed in plain clothes, he finally felt invisible. For the first time, people spoke to him without calculation. Some ignored him. Some disrespected him. But in their eyes he was not a billionaire's heir, he was just a driver. And that was where he found the one thing he had been searching for all along: truth. The next day Adewale wasn't supposed to go out. But something in her wanted to step into that car again. To hear his voice again. She opened the app, hesitated, then requested a ride. When Adewale's name popped up, her heart thudded faster than she cared to admit. He greeted her the same way as before, calm, casual, like nothing unusual was happening. But for Adewale, it was different. At first it was just small talk again, the heat, the traffic, the rising cost of fuel. Adewale found herself laughing at his comment about how Lagos drivers treat traffic lights like suggestions, not rules. It was silly, but it made her smile. But then, as the car rolled through the streets, silence settled again. And in that silence, old memories crept back. The last relationship she had, the one that broke her, flickered in her chest like a wound that never closed. Adewale remembered late nights of waiting for texts that never came, promises that dissolved into excuses, and the final betrayal that left her humiliated. Her laughter faded. Adewale noticed. "Did I say something wrong?" he asked quietly. Adewale shook her head quickly. "No. Not you." Adewale didn't press. Instead, he turned up the radio just a little, soft high-life music filling the car, leaving space for her thoughts. It was the first time Adewale realized he wasn't afraid of silence. And that made her feel safe. Finally he said softly, "My name is Adewale." She repeated it slowly like she was tasting it. Adewale. The days turned into weeks. And what should have been random encounters, slowly became a pattern. Sometimes she truly needed the ride. Other times she requested, just to escape her father's watchful eye. Just to sit in that quiet space where she could breathe. She didn't admit it to herself, but she was no longer escaping the house. She was going to him. The conversations grew longer. For the first time in years Wala felt seen. Not as the Adegbeite heir. Not as the son of the billionaire chief. Not as a name whispered in hushed voices at Lagos high society parties. With Adewale he was just Wala, the quiet Uber driver who sometimes forgot to shave, who laughed too hard at her jokes, who waited outside her gate longer than necessary, just to hear her voice again. And she liked him that way. She didn't ask about his family name. She didn't measure him against wealth or connections. She didn't care that his car was ordinary, or that he lived simply. What she saw and what she chose was him. It shook him more than he expected. All his life, he had doubted if this moment was even possible. That someone could look past the gold and see the man hidden beneath it. And now, in the soft light of her gaze, he felt a rare certainty take root in his heart. His journey had not been in vain. He had finally found her. Or so he thought. One night, stuck on 3rd Mainland Bridge, Adewale surprised herself by blurting out, "I used to paint." Adewale glanced at her in the mirror. "Used to?" Adewale shrugged, staring at the lagoon lights. "My dad said it was childish. He said real life is about business, not colors on a canvas." "Do you miss it?" Adewale asked softly. Her throat tightened. "Every day. But I don't talk about it anymore. It's easier not to." Adewale was quiet for a moment. Then he said almost gently, "Sometimes the things we bury don't stay buried. They wait." She turned to him sharply, her chest tightening. How did he always say things that felt like they came from inside her own head? She looked away quickly, fighting back the sting in her eyes. Another night, as rain tapped gently against the windshield, Adewale shared a piece of himself. "I've seen both sides of life," he said quietly. "Having, not having. People change depending on what they think you are. But me, I just want peace. Someone who sees me." The word struck her. Someone who sees me. She wanted to ask more, to dig deeper, but fear held her back. Still, the thought stayed with her. Ride after ride, their closeness grew. Unspoken, fragile, but undeniable. She started to look forward to Adewale's voice more than the destinations. He became the quiet she needed in a noisy world, the steady presence after the storm of her heartbreak. But she didn't tell him that. Not yet. Not when she still wasn't sure if her heart could trust again. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time they reached her street. Adewale sat quietly, her laughter still echoing faintly in the car, though now softened by the weight of memories. Adewale parked gently in front of her gate. Not rushing her to leave. Not breaking the silence. For a moment, neither of them moved. Adewale stared at the raindrops chasing each other down the glass, her heart heavier than she wanted to admit. It wasn't just the story he told or the laughter it pulled out of her. It was the way it reminded her of what she used to be before heartbreak taught her to stay guarded. Her hand tightened around her bag. She should go inside. She should say goodnight. But instead, Adewale found herself whispering, "Do you ever feel scared? Scared of letting someone in again?" Adewale didn't answer immediately. He leaned back, thoughtful, then said, "Everyone who's been hurt feels that. But sometimes the right person makes the fear a little lighter." Her throat tightened. She blinked quickly, trying to push back the tears stinging her eyes. Adewale hated crying in front of people. Hated looking weak. But here in this car with him, it didn't feel like weakness. It felt like being seen. Adewale let out a shaky breath and laughed bitterly. "You know, I've been sitting in your car for weeks, telling you things I don't even tell my friends. And yet, I don't even know if you believe half of what I say." Adewale's eyes met hers through the rearview mirror. Steady. Warm. "I believe you," he said softly. Every word. Something broke open inside her then. A gate Adewale had held closed for too long. Before she could stop herself, the words slipped out. "My name, it's Adewale." The sound of it filled the car like a confession. He didn't react the way she expected. No teasing. No dramatic pause. He just repeated it softly, almost tasting it. "Adewale." Then with the faintest smile he whispered, "Shewa." Her lips parted, caught off guard. "No one calls me that." "Then maybe they don't really see you," he said simply. The silence that followed was different from all the others before. It wasn't heavy or awkward. It was tender. Charged. Alive. Adewale looked at Adewale one last time before stepping out. This time when she went inside, she didn't just smile. She touched her chest, where her heart was finally, carefully, learning to beat again. And for the first time in a long while, she whispered her own name to herself, as though it finally belonged to her again. Adewale. Even as her laughter warmed him, Wala's mind kept circling the same question. Was this real? Or would it all change if she knew who I truly was? He had seen too many faces light up at his surname. Too many smiles widen the moment his father's wealth entered the room. He had watched friendships shift, loyalties bend, and affections turn into performances when money appeared. Adewale was different, or so it seemed. She cared when he was tired. She listened when he spoke about small things. She looked at him, not through him, not past him. But still the doubt lingered. So he watched. He waited. He noticed how she treated him when he had nothing to offer. Every moment was a test, though she didn't know it. Every day he checked, quietly, silently, if her love was for the driver in the old car, or for the air hiding behind the wheel. And slowly, piece by piece, her actions began to chip away at his fear. Slowly, he began to believe. The days that followed carried a new rhythm. Adewale found herself looking forward to the familiar hum of his car, to the way his silence never felt empty, and to the way he said her name, Shewa, as if it belonged only to him. At first she thought she was hiding it well. But families have a way of sensing things before words are spoken. One evening, as she sat at the dinner table, her younger sister's teasing voice broke the air. "Why do you always come home smiling these days, Shewa? Is there someone you're not telling us about?" Adewale's spoon froze midair. Heat rushed to her cheeks. She forced a laugh. "Don't be silly." But her mother was watching closely, her eyes narrowing in that way only mothers could. Later that night, as they cleared the dishes, her mother spoke low, firm. "Adewale, I hope you are being careful. A girl like you doesn't marry a driver. Don't let pity or loneliness cloud your judgment." The words cut sharper than expected. Adewale wanted to defend him, to say Adewale was more than that. But how could she when even she didn't fully know who he was? So she swallowed her reply, forced a nod, and carried the warning in silence. Across the city, Adewale too was sitting in a different kind of tension. His father's voice was deep with authority when he spoke. "This uber nonsense must stop. You're wasting your time. We'll find you a suitable bride, a woman from a family that matches ours." His mother added gently but firmly, "You're forgetting who you are. You're the son of a billionaire. This driving, it is beneath you." Adewale clenched his jaw, saying nothing. How could he explain that the wheel in his hands gave him a kind of freedom he never had in boardrooms? That the quiet conversations with the girl who didn't know his last name meant more than all the polished smiles of women handpicked for him? Instead, he nodded politely. Adewale had learned long ago how to nod when he meant no. Neither of them spoke of these warnings when they met again. When Adewale slid into the back seat, she smiled like nothing was weighing on her. When Adewale asked how her day was, his voice carried no hint of the battles at his family's table. But in the silence that lingered between their words, both of them held on to the same secret fear, that the fragile thing blooming between them could be crushed before it even had the chance to breathe. One evening, the city sky cracked open with rain. They were parked outside her gate, waiting for the storm to ease. Raindrops beat against the windshield, a steady rhythm that seemed to match the thundering of her heart. Adewale leaned forward from the back seat, resting her chin on the headrest of the front passenger chair. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Do you ever wonder if love is even worth it anymore?" Adewale's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He could have shrugged it off, made a joke, but the question cut too close to his own scars. Adewale let the truth slip instead. "All the time," he murmured. "But then I see you smile, and I think maybe it is." Adewale froze. The words weren't rehearsed, weren't dressed up to impress. They were raw, honest. Something inside her cracked open. For so long, Adewale had carried heartbreak like a second skin. She had learned to smile at friends, laugh at family dinners, pretend she was fine. But in this moment, with this man who was supposed to be just a driver, she felt seen. Truly seen. Her throat tightened. "You've been the only one who listens. Who doesn't rush me. Who makes me forget how heavy everything feels." Adewale turned, meeting her gaze through the rearview mirror. His eyes held no judgment, no pity, just quiet strength. "And you've been the only reason I still believe there's something worth waiting for." Adewale blinked, her breath trembling. "Are you saying?" "Yes," Adewale said, the word leaving him like a confession he had been holding for too long. "I think I've fallen for you." When the words left his mouth, felt both lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because he had finally said what had been pressing against his chest for weeks. He had told her the truth, that he wanted her, that he had fallen deeply. But heavier because now came the real test. Would she accept me for the man she thinks I am, just a driver, nothing more? Or was her heart already leaning toward me because she suspected something greater? The world seemed to pause. Outside, rain continued its restless dance. But inside, everything stilled. Her lips trembled, and before she could stop them, tears slipped free. But these weren't the bitter tears she had cried in the past. They were lighter, almost cleansing. She pressed her hand against her mouth, trying to quiet the sob that rose in her chest. And then she whispered back, broken but relieved, "Me too. I think I've fallen for you too. They didn't touch. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. In the hush of a rain-soaked Lagos night, two people who had no business finding each other admitted the truth they could no longer hide. And though neither said it aloud, they both knew their lives would never be the same again. For days after that rainy night, everything felt different. Adewale replayed his words in her head 100 times. I think I've fallen for you. It wasn't poetry. It wasn't grand. But it was true. And truth had become the rarest thing in her life. But love does not stay hidden forever. That Sunday, Adewale sat in her room, her heart racing like a drum. Her phone lay in her palm. Her thumb hovered over his name. She had made a decision. She would tell her parents. She couldn't keep sneaking around, couldn't keep pretending that her heart hadn't found something real in the most unexpected place. But Adewale was terrified. Not because she doubted him, no, never him, but because she knew her family. They measured men in bank accounts and surnames. And to them, a man behind the wheel of an Uber was invisible. Still, she told herself, they'll see what I see in him. Her mother was in the living room, scrolling through her phone, while her father sat in his chair, newspaper spread open. The TV hummed with Sunday afternoon news, but the house felt tense even in its quiet. Mummy, Daddy, Adewale began, her voice catching before she steadied it. There's someone I want you to meet. Her mother didn't look up. Who? Adewale swallowed hard. He's been driving me, but he's more than that. He listens to me. He makes me laugh again. He makes me. Her father set the paper down slowly, glasses perched low on his nose. Bring him here, he said simply. The words felt like a verdict. He arrived later that evening. Nervous wasn't the word, it was more than that. He wasn't a stranger to wealthy homes, but this was different. This mattered. She met him at the gate, her fingers laced with his, squeezing for courage. They'll understand, she whispered, though her own voice trembled with doubt. The living room was cool and polished. Her father's gaze was sharp. Her mother's expression already sour. He greeted respectfully, lowering his head slightly as he sat. Her father leaned forward. What's your name, young man? My name is Adewale, he replied steadily. So, what do you do? Her father asked further. His voice was calm, though his palms sweated. I drive. The silence that followed cut deep. Her mother's laugh was short and cruel. Drive? That's what you bring here, Adewale? After everything we've given you? A driver? Her father's eyes hardened. My daughter cannot marry beneath her. We gave her the best. We won't throw her away. Adewale's chest tightened. Daddy, please, he's not. Enough, her father thundered. Don't shame us further. You will not see him again. Her mother shook her head in disgust, muttering under her breath. Imagine, a driver. The room spun. Her throat closed. Adewale reached for Adewale's hand, dragging him up, her eyes already burning with tears. The sound of the door slamming behind them echoed in her ears like a gunshot. Outside, the night air hit them hard. Adewale leaned against Adewale's car, her body trembling. And then the tears came, heavy, hot, unstoppable. I told you, she sobbed. I told you they'd never understand. I knew it. I knew it. Adewale stood frozen, his chest burning with humiliation. He had never felt so small. The respect in his posture couldn't shield him from the sting of being dismissed, insulted, reduced to nothing in the eyes of the people who mattered most to her. I'm sorry, he whispered, barely able to meet her eyes. I embarrassed you. Adewale's head snapped up, wet hair clinging to her cheeks. Don't say that. You didn't embarrass me. You're the only thing keeping me together right now. Her voice cracked, falling into a whisper. I don't know how to fight them. Adewale wanted to hold her. He wanted to promise her the world. But shame had tied his arms to his sides and fear sealed his lips. So they stood there, side by side, broken in different ways. One humiliated, the other helpless. And for the first time, doubt crept between them. He got back into his car and drove off. So this is what they think of me. Just a driver. Just a nobody. Not worthy of their daughter. He felt his chest burn, not with anger but with shame. He thought of the long nights they had shared in traffic. The laughter that broke through her tears. The quiet moments when she trusted him with her silence. And now all of it was being dragged into the dirt because of who they thought he was. Part of him had wanted to shout, to rip away the mask and show them the truth. I'm not just a driver. I am the son of a Degbite. He wanted to see their arrogance crumble, their voices falter. But another part of him, the stronger part, held back. Because if he revealed himself now, then everything between him and Adewale would be tainted. She would never know if she loved him, or his name. So he swallowed the humiliation, each word like poison, each glance like a whip. He let them strip him of pride because somewhere inside he told himself it was worth it. She still stands by me after this, then I will know. Then I will finally know if her love is real.